Hey everyone, today we're doing a tier list of all 81 of the sponsors on Board Game Arena. So that will include Arcade, includes all the new Marine World sponsors. I guess they're not new at this point, but this is the first time I've done a list with actually all of them. So hopefully it'll be helpful. The last time we did a base game tier list was over a year ago now, so I don't actually think that my opinions of the sponsors have changed too much, but this will be a fully updated version of every sponsor. I guess sponsors are kind of the biggest unknown when you're playing a game of Ark Nova. You sort of expect to get points from animals and from projects, and then really sponsors are the biggest unknown in terms of how much they contribute to you getting to 100 points. Because some games there'll be zero, some games you'll just break every single sponsor's action and play none, and you just get your points from animals and projects. And then there'll be games where sponsors give you 20 or 30 or even 40 points out of your 100 or 114. So they definitely change the way that you play, and they're very important cards. A lot of them change how you approach the whole game. So yeah, we'll get started. We got 8 different tiers. We got a poll going on. Where do you think publications is going to end up? So let's start. Adventure Playground. This is definitely not a sponsor that changes how you play the game, but it's just a handy 4 points. It's very playable early. It's very playable in the late game or in the mid game, just at any point in time, really. Um, Nothing too exciting, nothing wrong with it. It's just sort of the middle of A tier. Like there are definitely better sponsors, but it's hard to go past 4 points for free. It's like the same amount of points as playing a Caracal, except you don't have to build an enclosure for it, and you don't have to pay any money for it. And the rock icon can be pretty nice as well. Not too much more to say about that. We'll get on to some more interesting ones. Why the hell is that? Oh, okay. Amazon House. This is like Adventure Playground on crack, I guess. It gives you the appeal of Adventure Playground and then 2 conservation points as well as a reputation and 3 different animal icons just in case you needed help for any of the projects. The requirements are a little bit steep. Upgraded sponsors, America's tag, 6 reputation. But honestly, it's not that bad. I think most games now, top players are upgrading sponsors. The America's tag is whatever, it's not that hard to hit. The reputation can be annoying at times if you want to play it early. But it just has such an insane payoff. Like, not even the points, just also the 3 tags can be hugely important. This is definitely at the top of S plus tier. Not going to say if it's number 1 or not, but at the moment it's at the front. Aquarium. So it was already very strong with just the base game, but now when you add marine worlds and the fact that you can build aquariums without an upgraded build action, you just build them and they give you a water tag. That makes aquarium even better because now aquarium itself gives 2 water. The 2 aquariums that you can build give another 2 water, so you have a minimum of 4 water available each game you play aquarium. And that's with no requirements, no cards, nothing. Um, so, I mean, when you play it by itself, it gives 4 points, and then just every single water icon, it's an amazing booster for it. It can definitely carry a lot of your game by giving you so many points. So, Amazon House was number 1, and it's immediately getting overthrown by Aquarium, I think. I don't even think it's that controversial. I think Amazon House gives you a very good one-time boost, but then Aquarium is not as many points up front, but has such a good ongoing effect that it can definitely make up for it. Well, I'll say that I do prefer Ark Nova at 2 players, but playing a 4 player game every now and then is interesting. This is true. Yeah, I will say that this is leaning more towards starting hand. Obviously, either are instant keeps in any starting hand you get. I don't think there's any hand where you wouldn't just instantly keep both of these. But yeah, this is more leaning towards the start of the game because towards the end of the game, I think it should be pretty obvious what's good and what's not. Say, for example, you have three large animals played at the end of the game, and there's an expert in large animals on display. Like, it's pretty good for you. It gives 6 appeal. I don't really you don't need to see a tier list to see that it gives you 6 points. But for example, expert in large animals is pretty bad if you play like if you played at the start of the game when you plan to play around the card. It's not that good. So this is where the tier list is sort of giving you more advice towards that. But having said that, Aquarium is not even that bad to play later in the game. It's still 4 points up front. Amazon House is obviously just better to play later in the game, as it gives more points. Arcade, kind of like the Adventure Playground, gives less points up front. The income is okay. You get 1 money for every 10 appeal you have. So I do particularly like it on Observation Tower when you are getting a lot more appeal from the tower. But honestly, the income's not really that noticeable. It's just nice for the 2 appeal. The nice little sponsor building can be pretty good next to a kiosk. And then in a 2-play game, like sometimes you get the 2 appeal at the end, sometimes you don't. But because you don't get all 4 up front, I have it slightly worse than Adventure Playground. It's sort of in just the middle of B tier. Yeah, Aquarium is amazing because it does have that upside of games where you do get 8 water tags. Even more than that you can have. Archaeologist. This one is incredibly map dependent. Having said that, even on the worst maps for Archaeologists, it's still pretty good. I don't even know what the worst map for it would be. Even on something like Park Restaurant, which is not amazing, like there's no super good rewards, you can still get 10 extra money or some X tokens or some reputation from it. And then you have the maps like Commercial Harbor or Outdoor Areas where you're getting plenty of ×2 tokens or partner zoos. So a little bit map dependent, but still overall very strong on any map. Just on some maps is S+ tier, on any other map maybe A+ tier, and then sort of the middle ground for that is I have it at the bottom of S tier. Actually, I don't know why B+ is below B. Good catch. Baboon Rock. Definitely got a buff in Marine World. The animal universities make it a lot more consistent. Now, if you start with a Baboon Rock, you can just grab the Primate University at a later point in time, get at least 1 guaranteed Primate tag, but probably 2 more guaranteed Primate tags. And then a lot of the new monkeys also have the Monkey Gang ability where they find other monkeys. So because of that, it's become a lot more consistent. And yeah, as we know from Aquarium, just any sponsor that gives you appeal boost as an ongoing effect can be really powerful. So I have this just at the bottom of A+ tier. Yeah, it looks like it's at the top, but it is at the bottom. Well, I'm definitely not putting it over Archaeologist, but it in the last base game tier list, it was pretty low down. It's definitely not that bad. It is a card that you can play around. Yeah, the 6 strength requirement can be a bit annoying because you compare it to its counterparts like Meerkat Den and Penguin Pool. The only advantage this has is that it doesn't require the 3 reputation like those 2 do. But if you're playing it by paying money for it, it's basically the same. Or if you have upgraded sponsors, it's not that bad either. Barred Owl Hut gives you a perception 2 every time you play a bird, which is nothing to write home about. It can definitely be a very powerful sponsor, but it's mainly going to depend on having birds as a base conservation project, or if you have another piece such as Penguin Pool or Ornithologist, then it can combo really nicely into those two. But yeah, by itself, it's not really a card that you would play around. Seeing extra cards is great, of course, but 6 strength to play, and then just an extra card every bird you play is fine, but it's not a game-breaking ability. I have it somewhere towards the bottom of B tier. There are definitely a lot worse sponsors out there. But if Birds is not a base project, this is not one that I'd keep out of the opening hand most of the time. Basic Research is a tough one for me to rank. I actually don't remember where I ranked it. I did this tier list before a couple of hours ago, but I don't exactly remember where I put Basic Research. So it has a lot of upside. The upside is you get a conservation points for every 2 different icons that you have. This can give you 5 conservation points. The only downside is that you're spending your sponsor's action playing this, and then you're giving the opponent money. But even if you get like 3 conservation points, that is a very good payoff. I think it's particularly useful for trying to get the 5 CP and 8 CP rewards quickly. Say you do a project, then you play this for an additional 2 conservation points or something. That can get you to 5 pretty quickly. And then it also has the research tag, which is not to be underrated either. But I would say I don't often pick this from starting hand. It's not one that I'm going to snap up very often. It's a one-time effect that has a good ability in the right circumstances. So I actually think I have it around B+ tier, but a little bit over Arcade. Yeah, this is true. It got slightly better in Marine World because there's the addition of the sea animal icon, so it's a little bit more consistent for more conservation points, I guess. And then I think also in Marine World, the thing is that science in general got a massive buff, so the science icon is really nice as well. Alright, Breeding Corporation. This just helps you support the base conservation projects. It does have an endgame of 1 CP for 5 projects supported, which I find happens maybe a bit less than 50% of my games. I think I average about roughly 4 projects per game, so it should happen about a bit less than 50%. But you just play it to help you support projects. It's either going to be extremely playable or it's not. Some games you just don't get any partners used and then it's completely useless. But some games it helps you just get extra CP from supporting the project. Sometimes it's the last icon that you need to support a project at 5, so can be very important, but not often a game-breaking sponsor. Got to remember where I put this as well. I think I have this around B tier, definitely above the Barred Owl Hut. Hello, Mike. Then we have its friend, the Breeding Program. I mean, same idea, just needs the 2 science, which I think is a much easier requirement to hit most of the time. But it does the same job. It's just going to be above the double Partner Zoo requirement. And there are some games where you have them both together and it can be really fun to do something like a Primates 4 project when you only have the Primate University in both of these, and maybe the Joker Tile from 5 or 8 CP. Cow disagrees? Disagrees with what? Do you rank these higher? I don't rate them that highly. There are definitely games where they're extremely useful, but most of the time I don't rate them very highly at all. Cable car is one I rate extremely highly. Same deal as Aquarium, ongoing boost for every rock icon that you play. This one doesn't require the 3 reputation to play, but it does cost 6 strength, which is a little bit annoying. The only thing is that compared to water, there's a lot of animals that have the double water icons, like the Sumatran tiger, the dugong, the pelican, I guess. But there's only one animal that has double rock, which is the alpine ibex. So I think that makes cable car slightly worse, but still extremely strong. I was actually debating putting it over Amazon House, but I think just because there are less rocks, it goes slightly below Amazon House. A bit more awkward to place. It's map dependent, but I actually feel like Aquarium is more awkward to place. Yeah, true. I definitely feel like amplifiers are much stronger in Marine World too. It's definitely S plus tier. That's interesting. I guess there weren't that many new animals introduced that weren't sea animals in Marine World, but all of them have rock. Is that true? There's the kite, the wolverine, snub-nosed monkey, even penguin doesn't have to fit in an aquarium has a rock. So I guess it probably is true. Conference on Australia. This was a really tough one to rate when Marine World first came out. Um, and I'm still not exactly sure where it should go because you have people like JD that rate it super highly, and I did at the start as well. And as I play more, I can see it's obviously quite good, but it's not as game breaking as I thought. So I will say the one map that this is probably S or S plus tier on is Ice Cream Parlors, because a lot of the time I forget about the end game effect, which is 1 appeal for every card that you've pouched up to a max of 5. On Ice Cream Parlors, you have the unique project reward of pouching, so you can pretty much guarantee a maxed out end game here. But the ongoing effect is pretty nice. You can increase your standard enclosure sizes, and if they're occupied, you get 2 appeals. So it is in a sense an appeal booster, as well as helping you fill map. So pretty useful. But I think I have it around the top of A tier. Yeah, I think I rate Baboon Rock higher than it. If you were to ask me in just a generic starting hand which one I'd prefer, I'd probably pick Baboon Rock at this stage. What about Petting Zoo? What about Petting Zoo? Yeah, there's a lot of there are a lot of sponsors that combo with others. But I feel like that's also true in the base game. Why are why are science icons better in Marine World? I can talk about it now, but I think I'm going to talk about it a bit more when we get to Science Museum. But basically, it's just the fact that with the addition of the Animal University, you now have 4 guaranteed science icons with the 3 universities you can get, which makes Science Museum playable 100% of the time if you want it to be playable. Whereas in the base game, you had to rely on finding another science icon to make it playable. So science just became more consistent. And then they also got some more good payoff cards with the expansion, such as publications. Conference on Europe is pretty trash. So when you first play it, it gives you some money for having Europe icons, which most of the time is going to be 2 money. Sometimes if Europe is a base project, then sure, it can be 5 or 10 money, but gives you a markability every time you play a Europe icon. Has a not a bad end game of 1 conservation point if you make 3 donations. So all that sounds okay, and it's still just really underwhelming to play. I have it around the middle of C tier. It sounds like it should be better than it is, but I mean, if you're playing it for 2 money and a mark ability and maybe an endgame point, that's not really a good use of a strength 5 sponsor action. Obviously, this becomes a lot better if Europe is the base project. I don't think I should really have to say it, but if there's any matching tag that if there's any tag that matches a base project, basically all these sponsors go up about 2 or 3 tiers, maybe more. If Europe is a base project and then this is in your starting hand, you'd probably pick it. Yeah, a little bit true. Europe is probably the worst continent, which does not help make this any better. I can tell you, Expert on Europe is not going to do too well in this upcoming battle. Diversity Researcher. I feel like this one did get a lot stronger in Marine World with the addition of all the water and rock icons that came in. I think also the meta of now that we're upgrading sponsors more often, it's just incredibly useful. Then it also has combos with things like money sponsors, where just any sponsor that gives you money is giving you more money. It is going S tier. Have it slightly above Archaeologist. The endgame points are also really nice on it. There's just so many times where I've had games where I've played 6 water and 6 rock icons, so even though this is maxed at 3, it's not that difficult to get 6 appeal from it. But even something like 2 appeal or 4 appeal, as well as the ongoing effect, is really nice. Yeah, and it's also a game saver. If you cook your map like I do a lot, this just means you can build stuff anywhere. It can make you be able to fit an Amazon house at towards the end of the game where it's impossible to fit otherwise. Engineer actually got a buff in Marine World. I think Cal might be talking about one specific combination with Pavilion Build and Landscape Gardener. Oh, it's a good target for Expedition. Okay. It's definitely not one that you want to see. The fact that top players are upgrading build less often now makes it a lot worse. If you are upgrading build and you are going to fill map, then sure, it's 5 points. It can also help you fill map. But it's also pretty costly to build all these enclosures. I mean, it's incredibly useful in a fast-paced game if you want to build a double 5 size or something. But if it's just a standard game where you have build upgraded and you really don't have that much money to build and play animals, it just doesn't really do that much. Engineer is scientifically proven to be better than Explorer. Ooh. More sponsors that benefit filled map. I actually feel like I'm filling map less often in Marine World though, because I feel like the games are faster paced. That could be that players are still improving from when the game first came out. But I also feel like with the addition of the action cards, you just have less time to fill map, and that makes Engineer even worse. But either way, it was D tier in the base game, and I'm still saying I think it's towards the top of D tier because there are worse sponsors, but it's one that I'd very rarely keep from opening hand, and I would never snap it up. Very nice, Nethax. Excavation site. Also going to be map dependent. Its worst map is probably Observation Tower, and even then it can give you 5 money and a card draw, I'm pretty sure. 5 extra money and an extra card draw. And then there are some maps, I think Research Institute is the best map for it. There's a beautiful spot where you get 5 money, a reputation, and an X token. That's just amazing. I think Hollywood Hills has a couple of nice spots, particularly 5 money and a reputation. But it's such a good sponsor to play early. A lot of the, well, getting the placement bonuses early game is pretty important anyway. This helps you reach the placement bonuses as well as rewarding you for covering them. It has the science icon, which we like a lot. And then it has an end game that's pretty easy to hit. Generally, you want to be covering all your placement bonuses anyway. There are some exceptions, like Silver Lake, where some of the placement bonuses are covered behind upgraded build spots, where you are probably not going to cover them. Well, you're definitely not going to if you're not upgrading build, but even without the end game, it's still an amazing sponsor. I might have to change this around at the end. I honestly can't remember if I had the bottom of S. I think it's at the bottom of S plus tier. I know there were 7 in S plus and 7 in S. So I'll count that towards the end. Expansion area. Instantly gives you a 3 size enclosure, but now all 3 size enclosures on the edge of your map count as 5 sizes. That is incredible. The only requirement to play it is upgraded sponsors. And you also have the end game if you cover all the border spaces, kind of like Archaeologist, but that pretty rarely happens, I would say, unless you are upgrading build. The thing is, if you're upgrading build, then you don't really need expansion area. Because I think the whole point of it is you get the enclosure for free, and then it's basically designed to play without upgrading build, I feel like. Easiest S plus. Actually, I don't think it was in S plus. I think I have it in S. If you think about it, immediately when you play, it's giving you a 5 size, and then every subsequent build action that you want to build a large enclosure, it's saving you 4 money and some map space. It also just allows you to have more enclosures than you normally would. It's at the top of S, I feel like. It's been underwhelming for Randall. No, it's basically never bad to play. Even if you use the enclosure as a 3 size enclosure, how awkward is it to keep building 3 sizes? It's just very useful. Expansion S plus. I think the difference between S plus and S is not huge. It's at the top of S. All right, we're going into the wall of expert sponsors. Expert in herbivores. In a 2-player game, not that exciting. Yeah, obviously, I mean, if herbivores is a base project, very useful. Otherwise, can be hit or miss. Sometimes your opponent's going to play a bunch of herbivores, or sometimes you're going to play a bunch of herbivores for seemingly random reasons, and you get some money out of it. Sometimes it gives 3 money and an animal icon, and that's pretty much it. So definitely not one that you sort of base your game around. Is it actually better than Conference on Europe? I don't think so. But again, it's going to depend. Expert in large animals. Yeah, as we said, good late game if you have large animals played. Can be okay early game for the future discounts you get on them. But it's costing you a sponsor action and a card to be able to play this, so it's in D tier. I have it above well, actually, I don't even know if that's true. I probably have it below Engineer. Expert in Predators. I'm not going to talk about all the animal ones. I don't think the order particularly matters between them, but for what it's worth, I would have Predators above Herbivores. Expert in small animals, actually not that bad. I think particularly in the early game, it can be very useful. So I'd sort of have it around B tier, probably higher than the Bard Owl Hut, just in general. I mean, a lot of games you're going to be playing 6 to 8 small animals just over the course of the game. So if this is saving you 18 money, not bad. Sometimes you play it late and you get 6 appeal from it. That's fantastic. Played Expert in Large 5 times in 1200 games. I'm not actually sure if I think my stat would be higher than that, but probably not too much more. Yeah, there is some synergy with the money ones with money sponsors, but basically everything combos with money sponsors. Expert on Africa. Pretty decent. So the more experienced you get, the more useful Clever becomes. Particularly if you can plan around not having to take a build action or not having to take a cards action, then Clever is just hugely important in increasing the speed of your games and limiting the amount of dead actions that you have to perform. The question then becomes, so you get the Clever when you play it immediately, you get at least one appeal, some appeal, you have some end games with X tokens. I guess the question is, how many Africa icons are you going to play for the game? It's sort of the big unknown. So I have it around the top of B plus tier. Maybe it's a bit low, but does it look out of place compared to the Adventure Playground? Perhaps. I think it belongs around the top of B plus. If Africa's not a base project and there's no habitat diversity, it's one that I might keep out of the starting hand. It's definitely not one that I'd snap up. Side entrance does not combo with money sponsors, because often when you have side entrance, or often when you have money sponsors, you don't need the extra money from side entrance. Export on Asia does combo with side entrance pretty well. Gives you a pavilion every time you play an Asia icon, so immediately when you play it, you get 2 appeal minimum. But Asia is the best continent in general for animals, so that makes it a bit better performing, whereas Africa is around the 3rd or 4th, which is why I think it's a little bit lower. I think Africa has the better ability, but worse animals. So for that reason, Export on Asia goes around the top of A tier. I think we have Conference on Australia slightly better than it. But Export on Asia can definitely win you games when you're playing those 4 or 5 Asia icons. Expert on Australia. It's actually really grown on me. Australia definitely got a buff in Marine World because a lot of the good reef animals are the Australian ones. And then the addition of Conference on Australia as well made it much better. So every time you play an Australian icon, you get to pouch a card. So it's just an appeal booster for Australia icons, as well as giving you the instant effect of 1 appeal for each Australia icon you have. I don't think I can rate it higher than Expert on Africa, but I think it's roughly the same. I think I am, in a vacuum, going to rate it higher than Arcade. Because I think the ongoing effect of being able to pouch cards is extremely powerful. I think most people know that the ice cream parlor reward of pouching 2 cards is really good, and this just lets you pouch for every Australia icon you play, which can really stack up. Expert on Europe is going straight into D tier. How far down in D tier? I would say I play it more often than Engineer. So instantly gives you a 1 size enclosure, and then for every Europe you play, you get a 1 size enclosure. The end goal is basically ignorable. It's extremely rare to hit 5 occupied 1 size enclosures, but can have some fantastic combos when you find a lot of those small European reptiles, and then you just play one, get an enclosure, play another one. That's fun to do, but if Europe is not a base project, you're wasting a lot of time playing these small reptiles that give you basically no points. So yeah, just not that good. And as we said, Europe is the worst continent in terms of animals. So it's giving you a pretty bad reward for the continent with the worst animals anyway. And Expert on America is a bit in the middle ground because the continent's pretty good. I think America's is quite clearly the second best continent, I would say. And getting a kiosk every time you play an America's icon is fine. Particularly early, it helps with income. Later in the game, getting to 5 kiosks for the conservation point is not too difficult if you're playing a few America's animals. So I think the ability is worse than Africa and Australia, but the continent's better, so it's around the top of B tier. I'd have it above the breeding programs, breeding corporation, because I think it's just more playable and more useful early. That's the thing, though. Even if you're playing, well, okay, if Europe, okay, if Europe and Reptiles are base projects, then yes. But if they're not, and you're still playing a slow one with Aquarium for 4 points, it's still a bit of a slow animals action. All right, Explorer. Right to the top, the best sponsor in the game. For every new tag, you get 1 appeal and 2 money. For every existing tag you have, you get 2 money. Just such an incredible ceiling on this card. This is one that you insta keep in any opening hand. This is one that you snap up if you see it on the display. I mean, probably not late game. Late game, if you don't need the money, then it doesn't do much. But early and mid game, this is insta snap. It's like an appeal booster on every single new icon that you play. It's pretty amazing. So it has a ceiling of basically, how many icons do we have? 11? 11 appeal and 22 money, but even more if you're releasing and replaying tags. Yeah, I don't think I need to say too much about it. It's just easily the best, easily. It's one of the reasons that you just upgrade sponsors. Farm Cat wins the award of the cutest animal card, but also not that good. I guess the only reason you're playing is for the Predator tag most of the time. There have been occasions where I've played it with 7 kiosk/pavilions and you get the full 5 appeal, but that's such a steep requirement to get 5 appeal. And you can only play it if you're under 25 appeal. Because that's a lot of effort to get not a lot of payoff. It has an endgame of 1 CP for every kiosk that has 3 unoccupied spaces next to it, which makes them pretty bad kiosks. But I have seen some cute things where I mean, say you have Expert on Americas in the late game, you just place a kiosk in the middle of nowhere, then you have an end game shield from this. But yeah, it's not very good. I think we're going below everything here, even below Expert in Large. Federal Grants, just incredibly useful and easy to play. There was a time when I had it in S plus or S tier in the base game. Probably gone down a little bit. Yeah, I think we are going at the top of A plus tier. I mean, it's just overall solid. It's not game changing, but the instant money is great. The science icon is great. The income is great. The end game is not that hard to hit. 1 CP for 9 reputation. So it's just all around solid. Only 4 strength to play. Pretty easy to play. And most of the time, it's one that you're keeping from your starting hand. Actually, better than Archaeologist. I don't think so. I think Archaeologist has a lot more upside on certain maps. And then even on the bad maps, Archaeologist can even give you more money than Federal Grants. Yeah, it's very good. There is nothing wrong with Federal Grants at all. Even in the mid to late game, you don't mind playing it that much for the end game CP. Just overall very solid. Field Research Type D Orcas wins the award for the stupidest sponsor name. 2 science and the fish requirement to give you a science icon and 3 reputation. It's actually a lot more playable than it looks. If you're going for any sort of reef animal build, then chances are you have these requirements already. You get 2/3 of the requirements just from taking the Sea Animal University, which you can do in move 1 of the game. So it's not that hard to play, especially if you are taking the Sea Animal University. It makes up for the reputation that you would otherwise get from taking the Science 2 Rep Uni. And then early game, it's just useful for helping you get the first card upgrade or your second worker earlier from 8 reputation. So pretty good early game card, pretty decent late game card. 3 reputation can be a conservation point, a card draw, and an X token. Once you get past the 10 reputation. But it's not really a game-changing sponsor. It's not one that you base your whole game around. I think we're going around B+. It's possible it was towards the end of A. Probably do some readjusting towards the end. Probably feels right around the bottom of B+. Certainly nothing wrong with it. It's going to sound a bit weird, but Foreign Institute is higher rated than it. It's just easy to play with no requirements, just requires 6 strength, but gives you instantly 2 reputation and the science tag. And it also has an end game goal that is not that difficult to hit. I would say I probably hit it in about 50% of games, maybe a touch less. I think that the difference is this is always guaranteed to be playable early, whereas the Field Research Type D Orcas is not guaranteed to be playable early, or even at any stage of the game. Whereas Foreign Institute does the same job, helps you get that first upgrade and second worker from 8 rep, but much more consistently, I would say. So I have Foreign Institute around A tier, probably above Expert on Asia, maybe above Conference as well. Yeah, I agree. They're just sponsors that there's basically no downside to playing them. I think Foreign Institute is kind of similar. There's really no downside to playing it. just the payoff is a little bit less than the other two. Franchise business. Instantly get a kiosk. 1 conservation point if you have 5 kiosks, so kind of similar to Expert on Americas, except the massive downside is that you need to have a kiosk already placed. The other benefit is you get income for each kiosk that your opponents have, so if you're playing against three inexperienced players and they're spamming a lot of kiosks, this can give you a lot of income. If it's a 2-player game against a strong opponent, this is going to do basically nothing for you. I think this is geared more towards 2-player games because that's what the majority of us play. So it's also going around D tier. I think the fact is it's just not playable for me in around half my games where I don't have a kiosk at any point in the game. And it's certainly not one, well, on ice cream parlors you might consider it from starting hand, but otherwise any other map, probably not. Going through a stretch of some pretty bad sponsors. Free Range New World Monkeys might actually win the award of stupidest sponsor name. It's definitely close between that and Orcas. But maybe it's a little bit unfair to put it in D tier like the others. I think we're going actually C tier. Maybe above Conference on Europe. It is a meme card most of the time, but there are certain maps, Silver Lake in particular, where there is just a ton of placement bonuses on the ground, and it's not that difficult to get 5 to 7 appeal from it, and maybe even an endgame shield or 2. Just for the record, this gives you 1 appeal for each placement bonuses you are connected to but not covering, and then 1 CP for every 2 unconnected placement bonuses on your map still. So the 2 maps that stand out to me are Silver Lake and Ice Cream Parlors are actually pretty decent for free range. Silver Lake in particular, not that difficult to get some endgame shields from it as well. But still a meme card most of the time. It's not worth going out of your way to play around. But if you happen to draw it and you happen to have some placement bonuses uncovered, it can be some nice appeal early. Geologist. Kind of similar to Federal Grants tier. Just the fact that there's no downside to playing it. And it's actually kind of underrated how much money it can give you throughout the game. Even on the worst maps for Rock, I think if you covered all the spots next to Rock, it's at least 15 money, maybe slightly less on which are bad Rock maps. I'm not sure we have any, actually. Maybe a Geographical Zoo would be the worst for it. But it does a bit of everything. So if you already have a Rock played, and this is your second Rock, it gives you 3 appeal, but you can play it later in the game for 6 appeal or 9 appeal, even higher if you have like a cable car and some nice Rock combo going. If you connect to all your Rocks, it gives you a conservation point, which is pretty easy to do. And yeah, this gives you a ton of money throughout the game. So we are definitely going S tier. I think we're going above diversity. I think we're going above expansion area, maybe. Maybe I get a bit too much flack for that. Just the fact that it's playable in every single game makes it extremely good. Free range is quite bad, but there are situations where it's decent, and there are times where even I have not considered it when I should have. Guerrilla Field Research. Very similar boat to Type D Orcas, kind of does the same job. Gives you a science icon, gives you some reputation. This one gives you a conservation point as well, so slightly better payoff. Just requires that extra icon to play, but no sea animal requirement to play. So it's kind of around B+ tier. It's not really a card you play around. It's more that if you happen to have it and you can play it, then it's really good to play. But it's not one that you would take from your starting hand and think, oh, I really need to get 3 science icons to be able to play this. So just kind of B+. Below Arcade because it's less playable, but definitely has higher upside than Arcade if playable. Guided School Tours. Very solid to play. Instantly 1 CP, 1 appeal. End goal, 5 different species, 1 additional CP makes it pretty good. Only 3 sponsor strength. Nothing to dislike about it. So it instantly gives you the same points as an Adventure Playground, but then has the upside of an extra CP if you get 5 different species. That makes it better than it. I think we're sort of going around the bottom of A+ tier. There's just really a never wrong time to play it. I mean, 7 points is a lot of points for a strength 3 sponsor. It's probably higher than Baboon Rock. Herpetologist is going next to these other ones. Next to the other experts. Horse Whisperer is very tricky. Because I have seen games where it can completely win you the game. I think being able to look through the discard pile is already a pretty good reward. You can track what your opponent's discarded, what they still have in their hand. That makes it incredibly useful. But then there are games where you play this and then you play 3 petting zoo icons afterwards, and the petting zoos give you 6 + 9 + 12. That's 27 points. That is about a quarter of the total score you need to cross. That's huge. And then there are games where you play it and there's no petting zoos in the discard and you don't find any others, and it's useless. It's also one that you want to play early, and then the 6 reputation requirement makes it difficult to do that. But I think can be an incredibly strong mid-game and even late-game sponsor to play. So I think it is game-changing, but unreliable. And for that reason, I think we have to put it around the middle of B+ tier, maybe even the top of B tier. I think it has so much upside, but just extremely unreliable. Yeah, I don't think it ever loses games, but it can just do nothing. Hello, Glitter. I like the design of it as well. I love being able to look through the discard pile. The money from the petting zoo animals is not really that relevant, but it's decent as well. It would be strong even without the 2 money from petting zoos. How good would it be if it gave you a petting zoo enclosure for free? Probably a bit too strong. Would you keep it in your starting hand if you have multiple petting zoos? It really depends what else you have in your starting hand. The problem with petting zoos has always been that they give you a lot of appeal, but then they don't help with any of the base projects. So while you're getting a lot of appeal and income, you're sort of at a standstill when it comes to projects, and if your opponent's supporting projects, they're getting an advantage over you. So it's a tricky one. It really depends on what else is in your hand. Well, okay, I mean, yes, they help with species diversity, but that is literally it. Hydrologist. Same tier as Geologist. They basically do the same things. I think we can put Hydrologist as slightly stronger. because of the just abundance of water tags. Also gives you a guaranteed appeal, whereas Geologist doesn't have a guaranteed appeal if you don't have any rock icons played. Hello, Atal. Landscape Garden is also another tricky one. Does have a lot of upside. Well, I'm sure most of you have seen those stupid games where you have 30 pavilions or whatever and you play this to get 30 appeal. That's more of a meme strat. I prefer to play this just to be able to get X tokens every time I build pavilions. I mean, it has great combinations with pavilion build, expert on Asia, posturing animals, posturing reward from CP, posturing from Reef. It's just great at generating X tokens, and then it has the upside of you can also play this later to get 10 plus appeal. I actually had a game a couple of months ago where I thought there was just no way my opponent could cross, and they pulled out a Landscape Gardener for 10 or 15 appeal or something, and they crossed from having no money on 85 points. So that was a bit of a surprise. But I don't know. I think we have it around A+ tier. I think just extremely useful. I don't think it's quite good enough for S tier. But certainly if you have another combo piece with it, particularly if you have Pavilion build, it probably goes up to S+ tier. But without a combo, and especially if you're not upgrading build, then it's not as useful. But yeah, even when you play it, it gives 2 appeal. You instantly get a Pavilion and an X token and 1 appeal for every Pavilion, which is minimum 1, so has a pretty good floor. Marine Biologist. Yeah, is like the others, except fish are just better than all the other animals because reef animals are completely busted. So we can have it a tier above. Probably feels right around the breeding program / breeding co-op. The thing is, there are also times where you and your opponents are just not playing fish and that's useless. But I mean, if you have reef animals and you have marine biologists, it's just so good. Whoa, whoa, in B, misclick. No. 21 turns is close to the record, but the record, as far as I know, is 20 turns. There have been a few recorded 21 turn games. I think my PB is actually 23 turns. Marine Research Expedition. This is another tricky one to rate. Because reef animals are great. This is like a barred owl hut for reef animals or for any sea animal. Yeah, most of the time you're going to be using the scuba dive ability from it, which is you just get to look at the top 3 cards and you get to keep a sponsor out of them. So a lot of the time that won't hit, you'll just get nothing. But then there are times where it gives you like Explorer or Aquarium or some other crazy cards, and it's amazing. Also gives you the science icon, gives you the sea animal tag, which can be useful. Towards the end of the game, you can use the expedition ability, which is you kill a person sponsor to get 1 conservation point, which, yeah, can be useful. But if you're not playing sea animals, then it's just completely dead weight. And it's not like an appeal booster. It gives you access to extra cards, which can be nice. But a lot of the time, you're just not going to get any extra cards either. So I think we're going around It feels right around B plus. I mean, it's certainly more playable than these, but the thing is, a lot of the time, do you actually want to be playing it? Not convinced. I have a 21 turn game. What? That's news to me. Expedition underrated. It's one that you use towards the end of the game. You don't really want to kill your sponsors in the early or maybe mid game, but I guess to me it feels more like a win now, a win more card. If you're already playing a bunch of reef animals, you're probably already doing extremely well. And this doesn't really, I mean, it does help, but you're probably already winning anyway. And then if you're not playing sea animals, then it's just completely does nothing. But yeah, I think I'd have all these monsters ahead of it. I mean, if Sea Animals is not a base project, it's not really doing that much. Medical Breakthrough. I mean, the 4 science requirement is the big thing. I guess has a great combination with Accessible Zoo Endgame where you want those requirements. It's amazing for that. It has a better payoff than Gorilla Field Research, but is that much harder to play, even though we did say you can consistently get 4 science icons from the universities now. If the reason you're doing that is just for medical breakthrough, it's not enough of a reason. So I would not often start with it from opening hand. It's more of a mid game if you have the icons, or if you're close to getting the icons, then it's good. End game, if you have the icons, then it can be a lot of appeal. You get 2 appeal for every conservation point that you've supported. So it can give you a great boost of something like 10 appeal towards the end of the game. But we're probably going around B tier. Feels right about there. Just very it's kind of like Horse Whisperer. It's too situational. It's not consistently good. Yeah, basic research does have a good payoff, but the thing is, also giving your opponent 6 money is quite impactful in the early to mid game as well. So I think that's the big downside of basic research. Meerkat Den. The appeal booster for herbivores has a beautiful shape. Everyone loves the shape of the petting zoo. Well, this is the same shape. I guess similar, well, very similar to Baboon Rock. I think we have herbivores slightly better. The thing is, they're more expensive to play. There are very few cheap herbivores, but I guess you'd make the same argument that primates are pretty expensive to play as well. But I feel like herbivores are probably better. You also have things like the flocking animals like llama, red deer, reindeer. So they can be very enclosure efficient, which is nice for spamming out herbivores, whereas primates don't have that access. Yeah, also one less sponsor strength to play it, although it does have the rep requirement. But really nice. We like all the appeal boosters now that we have animal universities. Even if herbivores is not a base project, it's really nice to play the Meerkat Den and then grab Herbivore University anyway. Migration Recording. Another one of these sponsors that can be game changing. Lets you support the same release projects more than once, gives you additional conservation points for supporting release projects, Gives you a science icon, only requires one science icon to play. And it gives you an X token immediately, so there's really nothing to hate about it. There have been times where I've played it and it only gives the X token, but it also makes the threat of releases that much more powerful. So definitely good. I think we're going around A+ tier. Probably towards the bottom of A+. The thing is, it is completely game-winning in certain situations, but then other times it can do very little. But I guess even if it lets you get one extra CP, it's decent enough. Yeah, I wouldn't say it stops your opponent from using release projects. It disincentivizes your opponent from putting up release projects. And that's true as well, yeah. In Marine World, there are just less instances of release projects coming out because no new ones got added, but we added a lot of other cards to the deck. So that's very true as well. Yeah, for that reason, it would be a little bit higher in the base game only. Still really good, though. Native farm animals. The question is, where do we rate it among all of these? So it's a tricky one for newer players to get their head around because I don't know, it's just one that not a lot of players read or take note of. But yeah, you get one appeal for every border space you are connected to but not covering, which doesn't sound amazing, but when you play around it a little bit, it can easily be 8 to 10 to 15 appeal, which is a huge amount. This is like playing an elephant, but it costs you 0 money and you just have to work for it a little bit. And then endgame gives you a shield for every group of 6 spaces that are connected but not covered. Which there are times where it can be 2 or 3 conservation points. I had a game earlier today where it gave me, I think, maybe 6 appeal, but then also 2 conservation points, which is such a huge payoff for a single card. We're definitely going S tier. I think we're going probably a little bit below Cable Car. There are some maps where it's just not that good. I would say in particular, Ice Cream Palace, I don't think it's that good. Uh, then there are other maps such as Observation Tower, I really like it. Silver Lake, pretty good as well. If you're playing it for 13 and lost, I can promise you it wasn't Native Farm. I know you're joking. Well, yeah, that's the other thing. It's obviously unplayable if you already have more than 25 appeal, but this is sort of going based on the early game. And yeah, it's one that if you see it on the display, it's quite possible you snap it up. Depending on what else you have, what your needs are. Native Lizards. This one gives you an appeal for every rock space you're connected to. Gives you an endgame shield for every 2 rocks you're not connected to. Also max 25. The thing is, for every map, there are at least, say, 15 or 16 border spaces, but the most rocks you're going to have on a map is 9, which I think is Hollywood Hills and maybe Ice Cream Palace as well. And then some maps you only have 6 or 7, which is still a fine payoff for a sponsor card. 6 or 7 points for free is fantastic, but does not have the huge upside of native farm animals. So it's going quite a few tiers below. I actually think they're going around B+ tier. It's possible Marine should be above that in Arcade, though. We're backtracking a little bit. I don't really have it A+ like the others. I think a lot of the time I find that it's one that I'll draw from the deck and think, okay, this is fine for 5 or 6 appeal, and then a break happens and I go, well, I have to keep 3 cards. Am I really keeping a native lizards? Probably not. I just feel like it doesn't get played anywhere near as often as the others. And native seabirds, we have very similar situation, I feel like. This is just the same, but for water spaces. I think water spaces would be slightly worse. I feel like lizards is better on a lot of maps and seabirds is pretty trash on some maps. Yeah, exactly. I think if we compare it to Adventure Playground, it's a very good comparison. Whereas, yeah, for native lizards, you really do have to work to get 6 or 7 appeal. And then Adventure Playground is just like, have 4 appeal for nothing. It costs me 3 sponsor strength compared to 5, but it gives you nearly the same payoff. And then these are also restricted by the fact that you just can't play them in the late game. Yeah, I think that's a very good comparison. That's sort of why I have it lower than the others. P plus seems high. Well, there's no pleasing anyone apparently. Okapi stable certainly has games where it can be incredibly good, but oftentimes I just don't want to play it. I mean, it's good if you're playing herbivores and so it's good if you're playing herbivores and it's a fast-paced game where you have plenty of money and sponsor cards. It just doesn't really line up that often. But I also don't try to play around it that often. It is certainly better than everything else in D tier. I'm just debating whether to put it at the bottom of C tier or not. I think we probably can. It's even possible it's better than all the expert cards, but I feel like it's not. Yeah, I agree. If I were to do balance changes for Arc Nova, I think I would make it 5 strength. And if it was 5 strength, it'd probably go up to B tier, maybe. I actually think 4 might be too low for it. Better than New World Monkey? No, no, no. I think New World Monkey has some pretty good use cases. I mean, Okapi does as well, but I feel like I'd probably play free range New World Monkeys more often than Okapi. Ornithologist is just the same as all these experts, but probably better than all the others because birds are better. I think Bard Owl Hut is better still. Oh, of course. If you're playing a higher player count games, then all these expert cards go up a few tiers. Just in 2-player games, they don't really give you that much money. But a 4-player game, Ornithologist is like actually really good to play. 4-player game, I might have at A tier. Penguin Pool. I mean, we're just going to put it next to the Meerkat Den and Baboon Rock, but slightly higher than both of those. Yeah, birds are generally better animals. I mean, you have things like the eagles. They can all fit in an aviary if you have that. I think there are just a lot of really good small birds as well. Like the great hornbill is a fantastic bird. Clever's back build. You have things like the posturing birds, like the peafowl, macaw. Just really solid animals to play. And this just gives you more points for playing them. And then polar bear exhibit. I might get a bit of hate for this. I would say it's a better appeal booster than the other 3 animal ones. The only problem is that bears are just that much rarer to play. Because there's only 10 or 11 of them in the whole deck compared to 25 plus birds more with the expansion. I mean, the benefit of this is you also get points when your opponents play bears. I think the main benefit is the fact that it just makes bears playable for you. Things like the giant panda need the bear requirement to be able to play them. This solves that issue, which is one of the hardest requirements to playing the panda. So I think we're going top of A tier. I could definitely see an argument for it being better than these three. But I just think the fact that there are so many less bears makes it worse. Yeah, it's the main thing is that it helps you be able to play the bears. Oh, and of course, yeah, it goes without saying, if species diversity is a base project, it's S+ tier. It is basically a guaranteed win at species 5 if you have a polar bear exhibit. Not guaranteed, but close enough to it. The endgame is funny. 6 bears might be the hardest endgame to hit in the whole game, but I mean, even 3 is pretty hard to hit, honestly. It makes opponent play less bears. Again, it does disincentivize the opponent from playing bears, but not that much because bears are just incredibly strong anyway. Primatologists, we have the same as all these guys. Okay. So, 36% of you say A+, 23% say A, 33% say S. 8% say B. Well, B is definitely wrong. I rate publications very highly. We are going the top of A+ tier. I'd have it better than federal grants. I think a lot of people aren't utilizing this card to its best or to its maximum effects. So instantly the floor on this card is you get a donation. Most of the time, if you're playing this early enough, it's going to be the first donation. So even if you do not upgrade Association, this blocks your opponent from taking the first donation, which is such a good exchange at 2 money for 1 conservation point. It gives you the science icon, which is nice, requires a science icon. And then the upside is, if you do upgrade Association, which I think you should if you're playing publications, it gives you discounted donations every single time. And yes, you can definitely have those crazy games where you have 6 donations and they are all costing you 0 money or very close to 0 money. I've had games where I did 6 donations and I think it cost 4 money total. So there is a massive upside to it. And particularly if you and your opponent are both donating, this makes it so much more painful for the opponent. That's the thing. I think if you're playing publications, you should probably try to play around upgrading Association because, yeah, cheaper donations make them much more easier to spend money on, and they give you a lot of points. When you're thinking about the end of the game and you're finishing on 100 points or whatever, if you're doing 5 donations, that's 15 points. That's crazy. Oh, of course. Even all these B+ tier sponsors, I would be happy to see these in my opening hand. I mean, that's how good sponsors are. Anything B+ tier, I'm keeping most of the time if there are very few other sponsors. So it does feel a bit unfair having all these. They look very low down, but they're all still super strong cards. Quarantine Lab. Quarantine Lab does have its haters, but I still find it very playable. I think it's really good. The amount of times that I've been saved from a constriction or a pilfer or a hypnosis, because I think these interactive abilities are really impactful, especially in 2 players. Even Venom, it's so annoying. And a constriction at the wrong time can completely lose you the game. A hypnosis at the wrong time can cost you the game. Avoiding a double pilfer from the Japanese macaque is amazing. So this card has a lot of upside. But at the very worst case, it gives you a science icon and an X token and an end game goal that's, I mean, same as foreign. It's not that difficult to hit if you play around it a little bit. So yeah, it feels around A tier to me. It definitely got a lot of hate, but just being able to avoid these abilities is super important in certain games. Yeah, there have definitely been times where it's been a game-winning card to avoid those abilities. All right, here we go. Reconstruction. Definitely an endgame card. The thing is, when you play it, you do not gain any placement bonuses for the rest of the game. So you never want to play it early, which means you don't keep it in your starting hand. Gives you 5 appeal if you fill your map. And I guess it does give you a Pavilion and a Chaos to help you fill your map and get a point. But it's the worst card. It's the worst sponsor in the game. Do not keep this. Do not snap it up. You maybe play it at the end of the game if you're going to fill map. I don't think you even play this in the mid game. It does have the ability of being able to reposition your buildings, which can be nice. I've seen players reposition their buildings so they have more endgame points from native farm animals, and that's a cute way of using it. But honestly, most of the time, it just feels like a complete waste of an action to play it. Can it fill map twice? Yes, you can definitely position it so you can fill the map twice. It would require having like diversity researcher though. Oh yeah, I mean that's the other thing about Quarantine Lab. In peaceful mode, completely useless, obviously. But I'm mainly talking about the arena settings on BGA where it is not peaceful mode. If it's peaceful mode, then the card should be removed from the game. Now that's Quarantine Lab. Should be removed from the game if it's in peaceful mode. I don't know why it would still be in there. In solo games, it should be removed from the deck as well. Release of patents. Very similar role to basic research. Has slightly less upside because it's capped at 3 conservation points, which is just as well because I think I've played this with 6 or 7 science icons, which would be just completely ridiculous to give that many conservation points. I think the cool thing about release is the combos for round 1. So it's actually one that's not that bad to keep from your opening hand, because you always have the option of grabbing the double science university, playing this, and then it gives you 2 shields, which is either an upgrade or the worker at 2 CP, so that can be very useful. And then it's also similar to basic research, just a nice way to be able to win the races to 5 and 8 conservation points, or get there faster. But it has the same downside. It costs a sponsor action and you're giving your opponent money. So the problem I always have with that is when you do a sponsor action, you're not pushing the brake. And now you're giving your opponent money when... I mean, giving your opponent money just makes it so it's easier for them to stay in the round, and you're making the round longer by not breaking. Yes, as I said, we're going completely vibes-based and experience-based. No statistics in this tier list. Reese's Monkey Park. Kind of similar to the Bard Owl Hut, I guess. It's more of a utility-based as opposed to giving you flat points. But X tokens are great to get. We like getting X tokens. So I will put it higher than Bard Owl Hut. But I think they're about next to each other. If you weren't planning on playing Primates, then just not much use playing it, but there are times where even if Primates aren't a base project, it's just useful to have. Sometimes the shape is nice for reaching bonuses, but definitely not one that you plan your game around. Not something like Baboon Rock where it gives you a much better reward for playing primates. B plus feels a little bit too high to me. X tokens are great, but I mean, seeing cards is also great. Nothing wrong with seeing extra cards. They're both useful, but the problem is reliability. You have to actually be playing the animal icons that match, which you have some incentive to do with these played, but often it's not worth going out of your way to play those animals just to get these bonuses. Science Institute. I mean, pretty basic, just gives 2 science icons. Would I keep this in an opening hand without any other reason to? Probably not. But it can be fine to play as a speculative sponsor early because there are a lot of good payoffs for science, which I think have got better in Marine Worlds. So I think we have it about the top of C. If it was an early game situation, I would definitely play this over one of the expert cards for sure. Yeah, I think high C is pretty fair. Science Lab requires upgraded sponsors, but we don't care about that. That's something we do anyway. Gives you a card draw instantly from rep range, as well as ongoing effect every income, and has a great endgame of 2 shields if you get 6 science. Does just a bit of everything. It also gives you the science tag. Maybe a little bit controversial, but I think we are going top of S tier. I know that a lot of people are going to put it at the, well, sort of middle or bottom of S plus tier. I think it's still extremely good, but I have it just below these other ones. Maybe it's a bit controversial putting Excavation Site ahead of it, but I actually think it's true. Yeah, I think you'll find most 700 plus ELO players will upgrade sponsors more than 50% of the time. And that makes this requirement basically non-existent. I think that's fair enough. I think the thing I like about Excavation Site is that it's just playable from round 1, and it can get you off to a really good start. Science Lab is something where you actually do have to want to upgrade sponsors, and it is a good enough it is a good enough reason to upgrade sponsors by itself, but sometimes you just prefer to upgrade other things. Yeah, definitely. Excavation Site is definitely an early game card. Science Lab you can play at any stage of the game as well. Native farm animals is pretty amazing. I think we need to watch some games again where native farm animals can completely win the game. It is such a good card. Native farm animals is better than Science Lab by quite a bit, I would say. Science Library, I think I'm going to get a bit more hate for this as well, but Science Library is going sort of the bottom of S plus tier. If I see this in opening hand, I am always keeping it. If I see it in opening display, I'm probably going to snap it up. Just does a bit of everything, gives you ongoing money for all science icons played, gives you appeal instantly. Sometimes that's 1 appeal, sometimes you get a few icons before and it's 3 or 4 appeal. Then it also has an end game goal that's pretty easy to hit, 5 different species. Just a bit of everything. Appeal, money, end game. That's all you want from a sponsor card. Super easy to play at 4 strength and no requirements. Just really good. And I think if we actually do look at the stats, it is one of the best performing sponsors as well from opening hand. I know I got a lot of hate for rating science libraries super high earlier on in my Arc Nova career, but do people really think it's not that good still? I think it's incredibly good. This one might also be a little bit controversial, Science Museum. So purely from an early game like starting hand, in Marine World, I'm keeping Science Museum more than 50% of the time by far. Because, like I said, you can guarantee these 4 icons a hit, and it is a game-changing card when you play it. When you play it, you get a minimum of 10 money. You get 2 for every science icon. That would be your 5th if you're playing it after 4. So you get 10 money instantly, as well as a conservation point, and then ongoing conservation points for every icon you play. So I actually have this above publications, top of A+ tier. I think this is a card that you, if you get it, you try to play around it. Absolutely, Science Library, or hang on, we're going back to this. If it gives you some money, a conservation point, and some appeal, yeah, that's really good. It gives you ongoing money as well throughout the game. People play science icons. And this just gives you even more incentive to play Science Museum. Because when you look at the reason to play science, you have Science Library as one, ongoing money. Science Museum, ongoing conservation points, publications, ongoing cheaper donations. There's just so many reasons to play science. And yeah, just the fact that they're more reliable with the 3 science universities. There are so many games where I take all 3 science universities and just get a Science Museum played. Doesn't have to be super early, but sometime in the mid game it's really strong. Yeah, I mean, Science Library can also give you more than 2 money. If you play Science Library as a first card, it can easily give you 20 money. Maybe it was 8 for each. Yeah, I think it was actually 8 for each. I'm not going to spoil the list. Sea Turtle tank. So just pretend that this has a double water icon and it also has the sea animal icon, and it's flipped the other direction. So we are talking about the Marine World version with those icons in double water. Really nice for species diversity. Nice if you have aquarium, although pretty tough to place actually. Maps like Observation Tower, it is really tough to place. I think also outdoor areas is not that easy to place it. The ongoing effect of sunbathing is not particularly useful. I mean, can be very good in round 1, where you just want the extra money but don't need the extra cards. Can be useful in low-paced games where you're doing cards actions and you just don't have a lot of money. But it's not a card you play around. It's a card you'd play if you need the icons or the water tags. Going around C tier. I would say I do play it more often than free range. Free range probably has higher upside, but Sea Turtle tank can be okay. It's just not that good. It's funny, I actually prefer it now that it has 2 water icons and the double tags. I think the 2 water icons makes it better. It's harder to place, but then it has more reward with it, more synergy with aquarium, and even like aquatic project or aquatic endgame. Busted with aquarium. I don't know if I'd call it busted. Side entrance. Think back when we did the first sponsors tier list, this was the number 1, but times have changed a little bit. Upgrading build is much less frequent. Having said that, still a very strong card. It can give you just an oppressive amount of money. It's tough to play against people that have a money advantage. And this can get you something like 20 or 30 income in the first round if you have a really slow round one. And if your opponent's on 10 income, that can be nearly insurmountable to overcome. But yeah, the trick to playing against it is just to break a lot. It feels right around A+, sort of below federal grants, above school tours, something like that. Opening hands, I would say I pick it less than all of these cards. I think just for opening hands, I would put it around this spot for A+ tier. I still pick it quite a bit, but I also don't mind skipping it that much. Because yeah, you can get money in a lot. You can get money in a lot of different ways. The end game also just, yeah. We said filling map is less common in Marine World because the games are quicker paced. That also makes side entrance worse because it needs some setup to be able to get money from it. And just a lot of the time you don't have the time to get it ready. Spokesperson. Just ongoing reputation for every science that you play. Really good early. Very similar role to Foreign Institute. I think we have it higher because it has more upside than Foreign Institute. It doesn't have the endgame shield, but on average should give more reputation, which is what you want from it. That's its main purpose. Also easy to play, only requiring 5 strength instead of 6. So it feels right around the top to mid A tier. Yeah, side entrance has synergy with a ton of different things. But yeah, Chaos build, Pavilion build does make it a lot better in round 1 for sure. Okay, we have all the sponsorship cards now. It's a tricky one. They're okay. Newer players definitely overrate them more than they should. For example, if Herbivores is a base project and you start with a taper or something, then having a sponsorship elephants is fine. You play it and you get 3 income and 1 appeal, whatever. Maybe you get more income later in the game. But then you have newer players that go like, Herbivores is not a base project. I'm going to keep a random Porcupine or something. I'm going to play that in round 1, and then I'm going to do that just to play sponsorship elephants. Like, you're basically wasting 2 card picks from doing that just to get a slightly better income. So yeah, I think originally when I did the list, I actually had all these expert cards in B tier and then these cards in C tier, but they probably do belong in D. You don't go out of your way to play them, but if you happen to have the animal played and you happen to just draw into these, or they're in reputation range, they're fine to play. They're probably more useful than all the other Ds. And yeah, the order doesn't really matter. Honestly, the reptiles might even be better than the others because you're just more likely to play a lot of small reptiles, but yeah, exactly. A lot of the time it's just better to break instead of playing it. Maybe not true in round 1 though. And then I guess late game they can be pretty useful just to get a decent amount of appeal. So you have 5 predators, play it 5 appeal. That's always going to be a good action. But yeah, you don't go out of your way to play these early. You play them if the situation is right. Spotted Hyena Compound. Maybe another controversial one. Because it can definitely be a game-winning card. If Predators is not a base project and you still get a Spotted Hyena Compound engine going, it can be really strong. Because this just hunts more animals based on the number of predators you have, and what you'll find is predators hunt into more predators and it keeps snowballing out of control. So when you have something like 5 predators, then you're more likely to find the good animals like rhinos, eagles, sun bears, that sort of thing. You're also more likely to find pack animals like wolf, dingo, and they scale on the amount of predators that you have. So can be really strong. Having said that, it's not always consistent. You don't always want to play a bunch of predators, especially if it's not a base project, and then it just doesn't do very much. So it's sort of in the same tier as these other utility animal sponsors, but I'd have it below Monkey Park and probably above Bart Owl Hut. Oh, for sure, yeah. Just looking at the end result of a tier list is never going to give the full picture. But, I mean, it can somewhat. I'm hoping that if people are looking at their opening hand and they have a choice between Science Library and Reconstruction, they're going to pick Science Library 99 times out of 100 without any context needed. Talented Communicator. Very good. Basically just gives you an extra worker. Needs upgraded sponsors. Gives you an end goal most of the time. I think it's just really nice to be able to have this in your opening hand, do a project, and say, instead of taking the worker at 2 CP, I'm going to upgrade sponsors and play Talented Communicator. So I like it a lot. I think we'll go below Expansion Area, but above Hydro and Geo. I mean, I'd be happy keeping any of these cards in opening hand, but this is probably the order that I might keep them in. Maybe I'd keep Communicator above Expansion Area. Yeah, there are, of course, other ways to get an additional worker, but I think this is the most clean one. Because you probably want to upgrade sponsors anyway in most games. Tech Institute, we are indeed going into S+ tier. And the question again becomes where? Do we think it's above or below Native Farm, or maybe even above a cable car? I'm not actually sure. I might put it above a cable car. Feels around right. Yeah, just gives X tokens as income. Amazing. End goal, I don't think you'll hit that often. I mean, if you play around it, you will. S+ number 8. Yep, that is all the S+ tier done. Yeah, truly deserving an S+ tier. If you upgrade sponsors by default, then by default I don't upgrade build. If I can avoid it, I don't upgrade build, but maybe I don't upgrade cards. Maybe I don't upgrade association either. Sponsors always feels pretty safe to upgrade. Even if you don't have one of these sponsors, just being able to break for extra money is amazing. Yeah, I forgot. It's actually 8 each, so there's one more coming into S tier, which I don't know which one it is. What is going in S tier from here? There's definitely one of them. Wait, is there? Maybe there's only going to be 7. I don't actually see what I'd put in S tier that I didn't already. Okay. Oh no, Vet is not S tier. Vet is decent, but it's not S tier. Underwater Tunnel, not S tier either. I do like it a lot. So upgrade sponsor requirement just gives you more space for reef animals, which can be useful. Sometimes it's not useful. Now, the thing is, it just gives 2 appeal instantly, and then if you put it next to any aquarium you've built, it gives 3 appeal endgame. I think I need to play around it a bit more. I need to actually think about where I place my aquariums, because 5 appeals in endgame is amazing. So if you can actually play around this and you have the need for all the fish space, it can be so good. Like 7 points is what you get from a guided school tours, but this also gives you space to hold fish. But the thing is, a lot of the time you don't have an aquarium or you don't need the space for fish because you're just not playing fish at all. So it's a bit less consistent, but really good. Really good reward if you can use it. We are going A tier somewhere. Yeah, it's a bit more situational. Maybe we're going above the playgrounds. Does it block water tiles? Nope. It has to go above water tiles, or above 2 water tiles, but they still count as water for all your enclosures and everything. Yeah, I agree. It's not really a starting hand kind of card. I mean, it can be a starting hand kind of card, but you'd probably prefer a lot of other things ahead of it. I would say it is more of a mid-game, I need the aquarium space, or I happen to have aquariums and this is some points. Okay, Vet. Vet is quite good. Yeah, buffs in Marine World. Universities are, you have more incentive to get 3 universities because instead of double science as the last university, you have the animal university instead. So it's actually giving you some benefit of finding some tags that you need, as well as the universities that give you reputation. So I'd say you get 3 universities more often in Marine World than in the base game. The instant money is nice. The science tag is nice. The main thing is being able to support projects at strength 4. Which, yeah, just can save you so many X tokens, or just, it can make it possible to be able to do project and another project immediately after. It can make it possible to pretty easily do project and grab your last university in one action with upgraded association. Yeah, where to go though? I feel like it is deserving of A+ tier, but probably doesn't look too nice. The A+ tier is getting a little bit crowded here. I think we're going around here. I don't know. Does it feel wrong to put it under federal grants? I think federal grants is just better, probably. I think rock sponsors do need or rock in general needs a bit more love. Okay, just ignore the picture on this one. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about the Sakura Echo victory column. But this is the Dwarven Time victory column. And it's just going to go next to Arcade. I think slightly above Arcade. So 1 appeal immediately. 1 appeal income every round is nice. So if you play this round 1, it's kind of like an adventure playground, except you get your appeal later in the game. Then endgame, if you have less appeal than your opponent, 2 appeal. Nice little one-size sponsor building. Just overall solid, but yeah, definitely not one that you plan your game around. It's just, if it's there, it's fine to play. And similar to Water Playground, Adventure Playground, same thing. We have Water slightly better than Rock as Hydro vs Geo and Aquarium vs Cable Car, same deal. Why is a large animal program a little bit trickier to play? The upgraded sponsors is not too bad. The 6 reputation can be annoying a lot of the time. In the late game, it's not a problem at all. But it makes it a bit tough to keep from your starting hand because you don't often get 6 reputation until, well, I mean, sometimes you get it in round 1, sometimes you don't get it until round 3 or something. But yeah, it just gives you an instant 5-size enclosure, which is really nice. It's like 10 money and the build action. But then also the ongoing effect to ignore 1 condition of a large animal can be incredibly useful. Think playing a big nose with only 1 primate icon, like that sort of useful. Having said that, think we're still going around B tier. Maybe we can put it above. If I'm thinking about how often I play it, I probably underrate it a little bit, but I feel like I don't play it that often. I certainly don't keep it in my starting hand that often. Or I feel like I do keep it in my starting hand and then just never get around to playing it. Oh, it's definitely weak in the expansion area for sure. But has its uses with being able to ignore a condition that can be incredibly useful. Okay, was a small animal program. 3 reputation requirement. Gives you 2 money for every small animal you've already played. Then has a not fantastic ongoing effects of being able to play 3 small animals in one animal's action if you want, and also snapping a small animal from the display if available. But really not that good. Maybe bottom of C tier. I'm honestly even thinking below the sponsorship cards, but maybe bottom of C tier feels about fair. It's possible it just belongs here though. I think it's a 50-50 call between them. Was a special assignment. Can be a completely game-winning card. You pick either small or large, and then you can only play those for the rest of the game, but gives you a lot of points for doing so. I think most of the time you're going to pick small animals for it, because if you pick large, you can get really stuck. Whereas small animals are more common and more playable. But yeah, if you pick small animals, every small animal you play extra 2 appeal. The 6 reputation means it's not playable as early as you'd like, but say if you do get this out round 2 or 3, it can give you a lot of points. It also lets you search for an animal when you play it immediately. No, we're gonna ruin the aesthetics here. But I'm a big fan of Wild's Special, but it's the same sort of problem as Horse Whisperer in that it's incredibly good when it is playable, but then often it's just not playable. I think it's around top of B tier. Are reptiles the worst animals in the game? In a vacuum, I would say yes. The problem that reptiles have is most of them just don't give you enough points. So they're very action inefficient. You're spending a lot of actions to play animals that give you no points. And animals is the action that you want to be giving you points. Most of the reef animals are small. That's true. I don't think that really changes my stance on Waza Special. If it's the mid game, I definitely look to play around this card if I can. But there are also times where you're holding a Rhino or something and then you don't want to put it on small because you want to play your Rhino as well. Stuff like that. And finally, last card, Zoo School. Actually, no, I think we have solved the issue. I think Zoo School is S tier. Maybe that's insane to put. But this is pretty much an instant keep in any opening hand. I feel like this is more playable than Science Museum. I mean, it's definitely playable. It's playable in any situation. Just gives you a little bit of everything. Gives you a card draw, a placement tile, a reputation, a conservation point. So it has some nice combinations. The CP is good. You can combine it with like a guided school tours to get to 2 CP early, or an animal that gives you a CP. Ooh, I will ask that. I like that. Yeah, just a bit of everything, and it's sort of never bad to play. Yeah, it's just a solid card. It's certainly not game changing, but I think compared to things like the playgrounds, it has a lot more upside than them. So maybe you could argue A plus tier, but yeah, maybe that is the question. in an opening hand, would I keep Zoo School or Federal Grants more often? Actually, I don't know the answer to that. Roughly the same, maybe. Put Wazza Small below the sponsorships. Yeah, I think it's 50-50. Okay, I mean, this is a good question from Big Man Murph Games. If you guys could move one card, what would you move and where? Because I think I'm reasonably happy with this list. Yeah, and that's the thing that I said earlier. Basically, everything from around B plus tier onwards, I am very happy to keep into my starting hand. And it does feel a little bit unfair that things like Arcade are in B plus tier, which looks really, really low down, but I would be so happy to keep this in my starting hand in every game. Sometimes you get better cards, sometimes you don't get better cards, but having decent sponsors to play is a very good indicator that you're gonna win the game, I would say. Drop Expert and Oz to B tier. I can see that. I think everything in B plus B A is reasonably close. Put Underwater Tunnel up. I could see that as well. Science Lab S plus. Yeah, I know a lot of people want to change Science Lab and Excavation Site. I could see that as well. Cable Car A plus, I definitely don't agree with. Migration down is a little bit situational, but I feel like it can be game winning as well. Move Baboon Rock lower. Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think with the addition of the Primate University and the Monkey Gang ability, primates have become a lot stronger in the Marine World expansion. Monkey Park higher. I kind of like Monkey Park where it is. Okay, I think I will cave into peer pressure though. I can definitely see Science Lab and Excavation Site swapping. That probably feels a bit more right. Landscape Gardener up. I feel like A plus is pretty good for where it is. There are some games where it's game changing if you have a combo piece like Pavilion Build. Otherwise, I find a lot of the time I just don't have time to play it. Two cards at the bottom of B plus tier, Guerrilla Field Research and Type D Orcas. They're certainly very good to play in the mid game. But yeah, I feel like they're not ones that you base your game around. They're just, if you happen to be able to play them, they're really nice. Science Museum does require a lot of setup, but I think the setup is worth it. Conference on Australia. I think it's deserving of A tier. It just gives you some nice appeal from expanding your enclosures. Helps you fill map if you want. It has some pretty good uses with expanding enclosures and then releasing animals. I've never had a game like that. I mean, I've seen plenty of good landscape gardener games. I've never actually had a game where I save it up for 30 plus appeal. Because it feels very committal. Like I said when we talked about it, I like to use it just to get more X tokens. I think you can use it in certain setups to get a bunch of appeal at the end of the game, but it's a bit riskier. If you could choose 4 sponsors for a starting hand, well, it wouldn't be 4 science cards. It would be Explore and Aquarium for sure. I think Tech as well. Maybe Science Library just because it's more playable. I don't know. Science Lab is also, well, I can't pick just 4. Amazon House, if it was 4 like really strong sponsor cards, I think we could skip because it's just less playable than the others. But Explorer and Aquarium for sure. Maybe Tech and Science Library. It is a. I still think it's a bit of a meme strat. As we saw from that Ecos game a couple of months ago, he did play like a 30 appeal Landscape Gardener and still lost the game. But yeah, a lot of people have been trying to theorize about if it can consistently win you the game if you have the perfect setup of Pavilion Build, Engineer, and Landscape Gardener. Native Farm is a little bit more map dependent, I would say. Native Farm is great on a lot of maps, but there are some maps where it's not very good. So you guys are saying maybe the perfect 4 sponsors would be like Tech, Science Library, Science Lab, Science Museum? If that were the case, maybe I'd go Spokesperson in there. If I was going for 4 science, Spokesperson has a lot of payoff as well. Maybe I'd go Spokesperson, Science Museum, Science Library, Science Lab, even without Tech. I think you really can't go wrong. If you're starting with 4 S tier sponsors, then you're probably doing pretty well. But yeah, I'm happy with this list. Let me know in the comments what you guys disagree with. I'm sure there'll be plenty of comments, but it's just based on my experience playing Marine World. Yeah, but the thing with the S plus tier sponsors is even if you do have a slow start, they can definitely help. They can definitely make up for it because they're all just incredibly game warping. Yeah. Oh, this was 2 hours. Okay, I was hoping it'd be a bit shorter than that. Been rambling for too long. Yeah, nothing is balanced and everything is situational. So, of course, think about context before just blindly following the list. Oh, of course, yeah. Chat would make an irrefutable list. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. And of course, yeah, any questions as well, feel free to leave them in the comments. Maybe I can explain some certain choices a bit better. But yeah, thanks all for watching and see you guys on Sunday for the BGA gameplay. Have a good rest of the day.